Hey, welcome to our Mary Greeley Primetime Alive presentation, Strategies for Forming Healthy Habits. I'm Danielle Linder, and I'm filling in for Vicki today, who is down south where it's warm. As a reminder, if you'd like more information about Primetime Alive or how to join, please visit our website, mgmc.org/PTA. Our presenter today is Dr. Alison Phillips. Dr. Phillips is a professor of psychology at Iowa State University, where she teaches health psychology to undergraduate and graduate level students and directs research in the Healthy Habits Lab. She has been a faculty member here at ISU since 2014, and she lives in Ames with her husband and 2 daughters. Her parents are also here in Ames and attending this workshop today. Please welcome Dr. Phillips.
Thank you very much. All right, we have all our technology sorted. Nothing will go wrong. It's such a pleasure to be here to present some of my research with you, but more so to talk about more broadly these ideas of changing our behaviors for better health and wellness. And I have spoken to Primetime Alive before, but it's been a while. First time I spoke to Primetime Alive was held at that hotel near I-35 off of 13th. It was a long time ago. This is such a nicer space to be in. I feel more well just being here. That was kind of a depressing venue the first time I ever spoke. So I'm happy to be here. Please ask questions as I go. You're welcome to. I will have some questions for you that feel free to supply answers if you'd like. I can always just bother my parents. They must participate when asked. So I'm currently teaching health psychology to graduate students, and I've focused it on changing behavior in general. And I want it to be helpful for them and their research, which is very diverse in what they're focusing on. And so the class is going to take a much broader view of behavior change than what we're going to talk about today. Because today we're talking about New Year's resolutions. Generally, this is the time of year when people are thinking about them. Although now that we're almost to February, people are now kind of depressed about their New Year's resolutions. But what I'd rather talk about are lifelong lifestyle resolutions or changes, ones that stick, ones that we want to stick. So we will be talking about that today, but I was going to point out that for my graduate students, for example, we look at behavior change along a whole trajectory of stages of change. This is one theory we often use in psychology to look at where people are in terms of their behavior change. And at the very start of the change, you might see that red dot, you might not. It's okay. Pre-contemplation is a fancy word for before you're even thinking about it. And actually, we try and catch a lot of people in this stage. If you think about if you're in healthcare at all, or we're in healthcare at all, for a profession, or if you have a loved one who needs to change some behavior, but they're not ready to even talk about it, this is where you often catch people. So I spend a lot of my time in research and teaching, thinking about, well, how do you get people to change when they're not even ready? How do you get someone to realize maybe they're an alcoholic and need to quit drinking, or that they should stop smoking because it's very bad for their health, or things like this, but they're not ready. That's a whole different story that we don't have to worry about today, because you are all interested to be here for a reason, which you don't have to share, but can if you want to. And maybe it's for a New Year's resolution or your next resolution, and it doesn't have to be for the new year. It could be at any point you want to make a change. And so if you're ready to make a change, you might be contemplating, but more likely you are preparing to do something that you want to change, or you're already in an action stage where you're trying it out, or you may already be very good at what you're doing and you're just here because you're interested. And that happens a lot too. I get a lot of healthy people who are interested in hearing about being healthy. And you're already good at it, but that's fine, because we also have to worry about relapse or falling off of what we want to be doing. So anyhow, that's just broadly, we're talking about many things, but I do want to focus today on New Year's resolutions. So what do these usually look like? I have asked many people this, as have others, and they're usually around exercise and fitness, to be honest. Eating healthier, exercising more, losing weight, those are all very common. Getting organized, it might be around financial things, right? Budgeting, saving money, saving up for something specific, living life to the fullest. You know, you might have a range. And I will depress you for only a second. This is depressing for 2 slides. I have one more depressing slide after this. 80% of New Year's resolutions fail within a month. That's the rough estimate. Would anyone disagree with that? No. Well, you might wonder, like, why not 100%? You know, which ones stick? Which ones work out? 20% seems kind of high to me, knowing what I do about New Year's resolutions. All right, I have one more depressing slide, just one. This is it. 95% of diets fail. And I'm going to show you this research summary. We're looking at a research summary. I told you this is it. This is depressing, but this is it. Because we're going to talk about better things after this. This is a summary of results from many different randomized controlled trials, really big studies that were funded by the government, probably federally funded, all of them. And there were interventions focused on helping people lose weight, people who needed to lose weight for better health, by the way. And what all of these were designed for 6 months of what we call an active intervention. So on this bottom line here, we have time in months from 0, that would be baseline. The people show up, they're ready for the intervention. And then 6 months of time is the active intervention. And it depended on what the study was, but it probably involved some nutrition information, exercise coaching or exercise information, and one-on-one interaction with a coach or a specialist of some kind. And they might vary in what they had other than that, but they worked fairly well. So you'll see on this vertical line is the change in weight in blue and change in fat mass, just another way of looking at weight and body composition, in green. And both of them went down, which is what they wanted to see, from the start to 6 months during the active intervention. So on average, people lost about 8 kilograms, excuse me, which is far more than pounds. And then, you know, whatever the fat mass is went down. The depressing part is, even though those worked, and it's kind of hard to get there, those of you who have tried to lose weight know how hard it is, right? They were successful at first, but inevitably, all of these studies, following people over time, people gain the weight back. And I'm sure many of you have experienced this personally. Well, you're not alone. This is what happens to everyone, for some good reasons. And my question, therefore, with my research is why? And I can tell you some reasons why, but what can we do better? So I'm getting to the better part is coming, but I'm curious as your thoughts on why, if any of you have thought long and hard about this personally or observing others. Why do New Year's resolutions fail? Go ahead.
Vacations will do the diet for me.
Vacations ruin the
Wait,
diet?
go on vacation, I think I can eat a month.
Which might be true unless your vacations are extensive. You go on vacation,
I don't know.
quit the diet, and then you go back to regular life, and what happens?
I go back to where eating like I'm supposed to.
You do.
Put on weight, I can't get it back off as much.
Oh, but your behavior sounds like you're doing exactly what you should. You have a goal, you try and eat well and exercise, you go on vacation and everything goes out the door, but you pick it back up again when you get home. Is that what you're saying? Oh, that's perfect. My job is done.
Well, no, I'm not that good at it.
That's what we're aiming for, though. And that's what people really struggle with, is once something goes out the door, picking it back up again is really hard. Yeah.
Can I ask just one quick question while we're talking about?
Of course.
I go by what I should eat and everything. My body mass index That's what I go by. I look it up on the computer, it doesn't take it. When I get too heavy, then I really seriously taking it off.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, that gives me a goal to, that's the way I can check personally.
Yeah, no, it's good to have these metrics to follow. Generally, we would like to focus on people feeling well, but you're going to get lots of advice from doctors and loved ones, and whether it's BMI or something else, or just exercising this amount or eating this amount. You know, there's all sorts of objective numbers that we try and meet. So we can talk about that. But so far, what I'm hearing from you is success. Does anyone have a thought on why people fail to stick to a behavior that they're trying to?
Same environment. You're in the same environment.
Yeah.
Family hasn't changed.
The barriers don't go away. Even though they're motivated and have learned some new skills, they run into the same barriers over and over and over again. Very good point. Did you have a different? Yeah.
After Christmas treats.
Yeah. Christmas treats? Yeah.
Too tempting.
Too tempting. All right. Well, that's a good segue, actually. I'm just going to list a couple examples of things we study, the reasons why behavior change is so hard. I hope this is not on a timer. We'll see. Maybe I just did it on accident. Okay. This picture is referring to a famous series of studies by Walter Mischel, a researcher, who studied self-control or willpower in kids. And they would do these really amusing experiments where they would bring in kids one at a time. The kids are presented a cookie, or you might see it under the marshmallow experiment if you looked it up. They were given a cookie or a marshmallow, and they're told by the experimenter, you can eat this if you want to, but if you wait until I come back to the room, I'm going to leave. And when I come back, if you haven't eaten the cookie, you get a second cookie. I'm going to give you another one, or a second marshmallow, or whatever it was. And the measure that they're looking at, they time how long the kid can wait until eating the cookie. And you can see some videos of this online. I highly recommend the marshmallow experiment. I've had better luck finding videos of them. The kids are sitting and they're tortured by not eating the marshmallow in front of them. Like, sit on their hands. They might pick it up and lick the marshmallow and put it back down. But inevitably they eat the marshmallow. They give in. It's kind of a mean experiment because the experimenter doesn't come back until the kids failed. And they just time the kid. How long can you last as a measure of self-control, self-regulation, and willpower. The longer they last predicts very well, doing better in academic performance, for example. So they've correlated that self-regulation, time until you cave and eat the cookie, with your GPA in high school and college. And that makes sense, I suppose. The longer you can hold out against temptation, maybe the better you are at reaching these, at these hard things to do that academic performance requires. I would not do that to children. We also have to fight against something we researchers call counter-intentional habits. This is where the context comes in. If you really want to start exercising, for example, when you get home in the evening, before you have dinner, maybe, and your habit is to come home, sit in a comfortable chair and watch TV, you get home, you automatically head towards the chair and sit and turn on the TV. That's really hard to overcome, even if you're super motivated to exercise. And so that's called a counter-intentional habit. It's going against what you want. We default to the default is another way of saying that. And then lastly, our motivations change. So at the time you're making a New Year's resolution, by February, maybe you don't care as much about that anymore, especially when you realize how hard it is to get up and get out and maybe exercise it in the morning when it's dark and cold still. So these are just examples of things that we study about why behavior change is so difficult. Considering all of those at once, I want to tell you about some better ways we know to change behavior Maybe you'll find these helpful, maybe not. Hopefully you will. Habits can help. And I've spent most of my research career studying habits, and I will end a good chunk of this talk with strategies that you can use to help form healthy habits. But a good chunk of my talk is now going to be about what is even a habit and how can we use this concept to get better. First, I'll define it for you. There are many definitions of habit. This one bothers me the least. As someone who studies habits, I can tell you I don't love any of the definitions, but we'll work with this one. A habit is a learned response. Learned means you've built it up over time. Association between a context and an action. So this could be anything like when you enter a dark room, you automatically reach over to flip on the light switch. The context is the dark room, and the learned response is I need to flip on the light switch. It might be making coffee in the morning and you take your pills. That's actually a very common habit I've seen in a medication taking, domain. People are most adherent when they take their pills with coffee. Does anyone know why? Because we are very adherent to coffee, those of us who drink coffee, right?
Yes.
And if you never lose that context, coffee, you won't lose what comes with it. So you just pair up your medications with the coffee and there you go. It works. It works out. Habits in general are automatic, which means we don't have to think about them. They don't require that willpower. It's just hard to think about when you're thinking about not eating a cookie, right? A cookie that's right in front of you. You wouldn't think about having a habit of not eating the cookie, right? This is in a lab setting, very contrived. Keep skipping ahead on me, I swear. I'm not doing it myself. But we want habits that are consistent, frequent, they're resistant to change, and they're our default or preferred action. So what I'm telling you is when you have a habit, you don't have to convince yourself to do it. You actually prefer doing it. I'm going to ask you to tell me what habits you already have. Think about those. Because when you want to start a new habit, you want to form a new habit, think about successes that you've had and what it actually is for you and how it fits in your life. But these are the characteristics of a habit and what we're going for. So unlike entering a dark room and flipping on a light switch, we're looking for healthy habits, which might be exercising regularly or eating healthfully, things that are more complex, which I'll talk about in a second. But we do want them to be our preferred action. Do any of you have an exercise habit that you would say? Yeah.
Monday, Friday, go.
Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, go to the gym. Perfect. And if you on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday were unable to go exercise, how would you feel?
I have to put on my calendar some other time.
Yeah, because it would bother you. Your preference is to go exercise on those days, right? Yeah. And that's what we want. We don't want, vacation is a very particular thing. If you can let something go for vacation and be okay with it, that's fine. But if it's something that you really need to have with you when you get back from vacation or even while you're on vacation, it should be something you want to do, right? It should be the default. It should be the preference. And it should be relatively easy. Exercise is not easy. By definition, it's physical activity, right? But you want it to be your preference. And so this is what habits are. This is what we're aiming for maintained behavior. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of my research, just to give you some context and tell you some stories about what I've learned. These are MEMS caps pill bottles. I don't know if any of you have used any of these, where you take your medicines from a pill bottle or even a box. They make pill boxes that record the time you open. And so it's kind of like a measure of, it helps individuals see if they've taken their pill because it might have a count on there, or it can tell you like you have taken or have not taken it today. But the way I used it was just to measure the time all of my participants were taking their medicines, because when they open the bottle, that's when they're taking their pills, hopefully, right? They're not just messing with me and opening the pill bottle. I told them not to do that, although they may have done that. So I ended up getting data that looked a little bit like this, or exactly like this for each individual. So let me take you through this. We're looking at one person over the course of a month, and each blue dot is a time they opened the pill bottle. So this person was conceivably taking a pill every time you see a blue dot. And this on the vertical axis here is the time of day. And so what we're seeing is this person on the first day of the study took her pill at 7 in the morning. The second day, that's about 8:30 in the morning. 1 p.m. the third day, and jumped all over the show actually, all the way. The latest this person took the pill was 8 p.m. And the green window here is supposed to be the time when the person takes the pill, optimally, so that you have the same amount of drug in your system. This person does not have a habit that I can see, and she actually reported a weak habit. Actually, she told me her habit, which was she keeps her pill bottles in her purse. Whenever she saw the pill bottles, she would take the pill. And so it really was a matter of at what point did she have her purse in the day and actually look in it. It's not as bad as it could be, actually. Medication adherence is quite low. I don't know how surprised you will be by this, but the estimate is 50% of people are non-adherent to their daily medications. Now, the degree to which they're non-adherent, varies, but you're missing at least 20% of your pills is the rough estimate. Half of us are missing at least 20% of our pills. We're need to fix that. But anyhow, she's doing pretty well because she took it 100% of the days.
Okay.
On the other hand, I'll show you the most adherent patient I've ever had. This person was on a twice daily regimen, had to take the pill every morning and evening, and look, it's like a straight line, exactly the same time, twice a day. And that's really kind of unheard of. If I do studies with twice daily regimens, people generally miss the evening doses and they're more adherent to the morning doses. I bet you're not surprised by that. Any ideas why that would be?
I trip over mine at breakfast.
Breakfast? And are you more, and breakfast is at a pretty consistent time?
Fairly.
More consistent than dinner? Yeah. Our schedules kind of go haywire throughout the day, and most people are very adherent to things in the morning. And actually we prefer a lack of routine in the morning. There are differences between individuals here, but in the evening we're like, well, let's vary it up a little bit. I don't want to eat the same thing every day for dinner, but breakfast can be the same thing every day for some of us, and timing as well. But this person, extremely strong habit. I don't actually know what his habit was, unless he set a timer on his phone that said, take the pill now. But that usually doesn't do very well for people because they might not have their phone on them at the time. Or if they do have their phone, maybe they're far away from their pills. So I think this was probably when he woke up and when he went to bed. And he just was very consistent in the timing of that. All right, well, he reported a very strong habit, unsurprisingly, and we see that he has a very strong habit. When I did mostly medication adherence work, I was convinced that all we need to do is form these habits and our troubles are over, right? People will take their medicines, which would go a long way to addressing a lot of the chronic illness burden that we have. But now that I study exercise and diet, I will tell you that habit can only get us so far. And certainly it's not the same thing as taking a pill. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my exercise research. This is a Fitbit 1. Anyone seen these or have a Fitbit? I know my parents have Fitbits. I chucked mine in the drawer the other day. I just got so tired of being told how many steps I had not taken today. Once you start using, if your habit is using a Fitbit, it can get annoying. But I use it to measure people over a short amount of time, similar to that pill bottle that measured their behavior. But when you look at an individual's data for Fitbit, this is just one thing you can kind of see if you use a Fitbit. These dots are intensity of activity, let's say. So this is one person across a day. And now the time is along the bottom here. So 6 in the morning is where we're starting on the left, noon in the middle till 11 p.m. You can see that this person, and then the days are going up. So it's like the first day of the study is at the bottom, and then I followed them for a month. And this person was active primarily between 8 and 11 a.m. The red bigger dots are this person's taking more steps. To me, this looks like a pretty good habit. And for you, sir, if we saw Monday, Wednesday, Friday, red dots because you were more active, you went to the gym on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you could see at least that every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, this person got more activity. Same time of day?
Close.
Close, but maybe not, right? Students I work with, for example, students have a very common exercise habit, if they have one. They'll go to the gym after their last class. But their last class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday might be 11 in the morning. And the last class on Tuesday, Thursday might be 5 o'clock at night. Right? So if you looked at their activity, you might see a pattern, but it would be different time of the day, depending on the day. So it's even more complex already, even if they have a habit. The person on the right, different person, over the course of a month, you see only small little green dots. That means that they were pretty active throughout the day, but you don't really see a consistent pattern of behavior. Maybe there's quite a bit of walking at 3 o'clock, but only for those days, not the rest of the month. So what were those 2 weeks versus those 2 weeks? I don't know. I don't see a habit here, but this person reported a strong habit. And then there's this person who was a little bit active all the time. I kind of imagined a postal worker or someone who's just walking all the time, but they reported a weak exercise habit. They don't really automatically engage in exercise in any particular context. And so my point to you here is, it's harder with something like exercise. This is from college students. I find them highly amusing, what they eat and how they exercise. It's always interesting, let's just say that, but it will help us think about what is an exercise habit in this moment. So this is one example of a routine that a college student told me that they have. This is their exercise habit. After class, I run or walk briskly on the treadmill for about 30 to 40 minutes. Then I stretch for 20 minutes. And after that, I do a workout for glutes for the length of a Beyonce song, which is extremely specific. Good for you. My question functionally is, which part of that is the habit? And so split this up into two things. After class is a cue for exercising. It's a context for the habit. And that's actually what I would like to focus on for interventions. We call it an instigation habit. It's a habit of just starting, instigating the thing that you want. All the rest of that in orange is an execution habit. This person has a very strong execution habit. They do the same thing every single time. But is that important for overall health and well-being and for making sure you get to exercise? The answer is no. And so a lot of my research has found that it's really just that first part. If you have an instigation habit, having a habit of starting exercise, you stick with it in the long term. For this person, it was after class. For you, it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Anything that determined the Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Is it a class schedule?
Just set it up. So.
Yeah, and it fit best with your schedule, and then you make it fit in your routine. For me, it's the last thing I do before I pick up kids. So I don't know if I'd call it a habit, actually. I'm the habit researcher, and I don't know if I have a habit because the context is always different. I might be in my office on campus. I work a lot from home. I could be with my parents hanging out or whatever. But if it's the time that I need, before I get my kids, that's when I do it. So I kind of have to plan each day, I suppose. But there's only a set number of things that happen. Kids are ready to be picked up at 5:15, or if it's an early day, noon or 4, and it only goes haywire if there's a weather related closure or something. And then I just call my mom and I say, could you please pick up the kids? So she helps me stick to my exercise habit. But if you can have an instigation habit, we know that those work best. The execution habit is actually really interesting. What I'd like to do is to see if people who are completely new to a behavior like exercise, if you have them do the same kind of routine thing until they get confident, until they feel that they can do it and they know what it feels like, that it can feel good to exercise, then focus on variety. That might actually help people get past February for their New Year's resolutions. But in general, variety is a good thing. Okay, so exercise is more complex than that. I want you to consider other behaviors that you're interested in forming. And I'm only focusing on exercise as an example case, right? A complex behavior that's related to health that many people resolve to do, but you might not. So apply this to whichever behavior it is that you're interested in promoting. If it's just taking a pill, I have a different set of tips. If it's complicated, as most behaviors are, then consider this. There's a whole preparation stage, right? So you don't just decide to go exercise and then, whoop, you're there. You have to have the proper shoes. If you're going to go for a walk, it's very important to have the right shoes on. The weather matters, right? So where you're walking. Maybe you like to walk with somebody in particular. You have a walking buddy. And so you have to schedule time with them. So there's a whole bunch of preparation activities that lead up to exercise. And then the distinction I've already told you is between instigating exercise, which is just a decision in a way to exercise, even if it's automatic. It's time to go. And then there's executing exercise, which is what you're actually doing for your exercise. Does anyone have a different behavior they're aiming for? Yes.
Over the years, I have started to think of all the preparation time as a total waste of time.
Yes.
And so I do my exercise.
Yeah. Which is an excellent thought process to go through, is how much time am I devoting to
The actual exercise.
to my options? Yeah. I try and revisit that on a routine basis, just because of the limited time that we have. What are our goals and hopes and desires and wishes? How are we going to get there? And then how do you fit all of that into your very limited time? So yeah, the preparation is worth considering just for that, right? But if you can make these habits, they're automatic, which means they're faster. They take as little of time as possible. And maybe I did not make that explicit. It was in the list of the benefits of having a habit. One of the main ones is a habit is automatic, which means you free up most of your mind that needs to do difficult thinking and planning and use your willpower for other things that you want to do. So if all of these preparation steps can be automatic, they take up less of your time. But yeah, if you have an activity that requires traveling and more preparation steps in total, even if they're habitual, it might not be worth it to you. But I recently did, and by recently, it's been a couple of years now, I did a larger study. It was all online with a global sample. There was a exercise company called Les Mills, which is actually somebody's name. I didn't know that was a common name in New Zealand. Les, L-E-S, Les. Do any of you know a Les? Well, it's this man's name, Les Mills, but it's the name of the company as well, Les Mills International. They train exercise class instructors. So they have 130,000 instructors. If you do any exercise classes that has content that switches up every 3 months or so, it's highly likely that they get their stuff from Les Mills International, which happens to be in New Zealand, but anyone can kind of do their online classes. This was during the pandemic, which means nobody was going to exercise classes. And so they did an online, on-demand exercise class thing. So any of us could have signed up for Les Mills classes and done online spin classes if you had a Peloton. The Peloton bikes, that company, like they sold out of, everyone was buying a bike in the pandemic. Not me, but anyone did. Anyhow, I did this study with Les Mills to try and, they were interested in helping their clientele form habits of doing Les Mills workouts, right? Because they want to keep people coming back. They wanted to be helpful, but they also wanted to keep themselves in business. So what we did was we split people up. I had 8 different groups, and I won't tell you about all of those. Some people, we helped them form a preparation habit, and that was it. We focused on making those preparation steps habitual. Other people had help instigating exercise, and we just focused all the content on forming a habit around deciding to do a Les Mills workout or other workout. I did not limit them to Les Mills. Thirdly, we didn't actually focus on execution habits. It was a motivational component, and I won't focus too much on that today. You can ask me questions later if you like. But the answer was everything helped, right? Every little bit of strategies we gave them helped. And I'm going to give some of those to you in a couple of minutes. But what worked the best was the preparation habits. So those who we helped form a preparation habit, they stuck with their exercise goals the longest. And we followed them for a year, which is quite a long time. We didn't follow them for just a month or even 3 months, but a whole year. And people who formed preparation habits did the best at sticking to their exercise goals the whole year. Okay, nutrition, I have to talk a little bit. It's even more complex than exercise. So I have, I'm going to show you an item. This is something we would ask on a survey. If I was trying to measure how strong a habit is that you have, I would ask you, how automatically do you do it, right? So it would be a question like this. It would be whatever behavior we're looking at. It could be exercising. In this case, I have eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. Whatever the behavior is, taking my medicine is something I do automatically. And you would say, nope, not at all, to very automatic. I do it very automatically. Other questions are, I do it without thinking. I do without having to remember. These are all measures of habit strength. And I could talk for hours just about measures of habit strength. They're all terrible. They're kind of confusing. The last item is, I start doing this before I realize I'm doing it. And it's really weird to think about, what do I start doing before I realize I'm even doing it? Exercise it does not. No one starts exercising before they realize they're exercising. It's such a silly question. So I stopped asking that question in my exercise studies. I suppose you could take your pills before realizing you're doing it, which is actually a problem because people will take too many pills. If you have a really strong habit of taking your medicines, you might forget if you've taken them, right? So that's the opposite problem. Nobody has that problem with exercise. So diet, eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day is something I do automatically. Is that even possible? Yes, it's possible to eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, but all at once? And which ones? For your whole day, yeah. No, I agree. We want people to eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, but for that to be the habit is too vague. Like that's not a behavior by itself. It might be eating apples with breakfast and a salad at lunch or dinner, or, it's over the course of a day, you get what you need, but that's not a habit. So if that's what you want to do, if this is your goal, we'll have to form several different habits, maybe. Stick with me, I'm getting there. Eating 1 serving of broccoli. Did that spell that correctly? Broccoli, I never get right. Broccoli every dinner while at home during the summer is too specific, right? That's not what we're trying to do for health and well-being. We're not trying to form a very specific, and this is how most habit researchers see habits, by the way. It's like flipping a light switch when you enter a dark room. It's the exact same action in the exact same context. Well, diet and nutrition can't be that way. Eating 1 fruit or vegetable at every meal is something I do automatically. Is that possible? Yes. Does that make sense? As a habit? Yes, that's awesome. And actually, a good friend of mine, that's her habit with her kids. That's what she tries to get her kids to do, which I love the idea of, because instead of torturing herself about every day having them count up 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, finding out that, uh-oh, I'm 5 short by the end of the day, and then having them eat all 5 at once. That doesn't seem like a good idea. But 1 fruit or vegetable every meal. And I got the idea for habits before I even knew what I was doing, because my mother had this habit. Mom, do you remember what your dietary habit was? You told me you had this habit, and it was beautiful. It was in the realm of awesome. If you don't remember, I'll tell everybody. Every meal, having some protein and fiber every meal is her habit. Do you still have it?
Yeah, pretty much. I do it automatic.
She does it automatically. She doesn't even know if she has that habit anymore. It's a habit that's functional. You're getting some protein and some fiber with every meal. Why is that a good thing? Anybody? Digestion, blood sugar control. Yeah. If you have protein and fiber, it keeps your blood sugar more stable. Yeah, which is what we want for optimal health, as well as especially diabetes management. That's an awesome habit, Mom. Don't give it up. Eating 1 fruit or vegetable every meal is also something that we can do. Okay, I'm getting there, Danielle. I've got a lot to go. I did this study with, again, college students. They are a hoot. I wanted to see if I could get these college students to form a habit of filling half their dinner plate with fruits and vegetables. Didn't matter what it was, because they're going to the dining hall and somebody's preparing all the food for them. Yeah, so all they have to do is put the stuff on their plate and hopefully eat it, right? But it's a higher order habit. It could be any servings of fruits and vegetables. I just wanted to see if it was possible. And I'll tell you the results now. It worked. So I had 2 groups. The control group just had to send me pictures of their dinner plates and report to me if they had formed a habit with those items that I mentioned. The dotted line is the intervention group. So at the beginning, you know, they reported some level of habit of filling half their dinner plates with fruits and vegetables, and that increased over the very short, it was less than a month. This blue line is a 4. That is kind of the threshold at which we think people do have a habit. So they kind of got there a little bit. And then the control group didn't, although they also improved. And it was just a fun little experiment that I did with an honors student, an undergraduate. She said, hey, I really want to do a research project. So we put this together. And the students had to send us pictures of their dinner plates. And this amused me for months, looking at their dinner plates. These students did very well. Look how healthy they are. And about 50% of their plate, half their dinner plates, are fruits and vegetables. Yes? We're just checking to see if they did it. There were quite a few where there's not one discernible vegetable. Remember, potatoes are not vegetables. They don't count. They're a starch. I know, you're like, darn it. Maybe if you added something to them, they'd be healthier. The banana strategy, I think they were just cheating. There were so many who sent me pictures of a banana taking 50% of their plate up. You know, they met the requirement. It's like they're doing their homework. They're like, okay, here's a banana. It was common strategy. And then I forgot how much college students eat. So then I got these pictures where it wasn't 1 dinner plate, it was 4 or 5. How they eat so much. So I had to we changed what we coded from half of the dinner plate to 50% of the food in front of them. Was it fruits or vegetables? Yeah. Did they do a good job? I don't know. And then there were just so many options now at the dining hall where I don't even know what's in that green colored burrito. Were there vegetables inside of that? There might be. I don't know. I don't know how to code that. And then the blue goo. I know that's a popular drink, that blue stuff. Oh. Yeah. All right. Summarizing so far. We want habits because they're easier to maintain. You can choose what part of a complex behavior you want to be a habit. Could be preparation, which is not a bad idea. It might be instigation, or it could be execution, what you're actually doing when you're doing that complex thing. A habit can be higher order, and that a variety of behaviors or options are involved. So if you want to start a habit of eating breakfast, it doesn't have to be a specific, you don't have to have a habit of eating oatmeal, right? It could be different foods every time, but you can still form a habit of eating breakfast. So those are good news items, I think. So tips for you. If you have an outcome goal, and that sounds, I use these terms all the time, that might be new to you. Let's think about New Year's resolutions. Is anyone free to share what their New Year's resolution was or is? Anyone? The most common one is losing weight. I'm not saying any of you need that. Yes, ma'am.
Going up and down my 13 steps from the basement 10 times a day.
Okay, very specific. I love it. That is a behavioral goal. Increasing steps, but specifically walking up these steps 10 times a day. I see you're all, my job is done. You're all perfect. What are you doing here? An outcome goal is something you want to achieve, like weight loss is the typical one that people usually get. And I encourage anyone with those goals, which are important, right, to change them into behavioral goals, like walking up your steps a certain number of times, or exercising a certain number of times a week, or something that you can count and focus on. Because the outcome is just that. It's not something you can do. Right? So we need these to be behavioral goals. To form a habit, for whether it's preparation, instigation, or execution, you have to repeat what you want to do in a stable context. After a stable cue. For students, it's after their last class. For taking pills, it might be when you make coffee in the morning. We call it piggybacking if you tie it to something you already do. That's why I wanted you to think about habits you already have. I asked my students, how many of them floss? I'm going to do it to you now. How many of you floss? Oh my gosh, you're the best I've ever had. About 20% of my students say yes, right? Most of them don't. But if you ask them, do you brush your teeth? They all do. Well, you just add some flossing onto your teeth brushing and you're golden. It's the easiest habit to form.
Takes time though.
Flossing?
Yeah.
But once you know what it feels like to have clean teeth.
Want to take that time.
Yeah. Well, but this is a very good point. It's easy to do, but to get people to have a habit, to take the time required. And it's not very expensive as habits go, right? Like getting floss. The time might be something, but if you can get them to realize what it feels like to have unclogged teeth, it's amazing, right? Those of you who floss regularly, you would not go without it, right? We need to do the same thing for exercise and eating well. People don't know or they forget what it's like to feel good. Anyhow, piggybacking works. This is what action planning is called. You pick your context. For example, if I have lunch, then I will have a piece of fruit. Simplify it for yourselves, but pick the context. Bless you. If it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then I will go to the gym. It's a little bit harder, but something like that, right? Pick the context that'll work with your lives. Walking up and down the stairs, are you doing something at those? Laundry.
Things I forgot.
Whenever I'm doing something that needs to be done, I'm gonna add some steps. That works very well as a context. So I want to have you think about reasonable cues. Now, for you all might wake up at 5 a.m. Do I have any late morning waker-uppers? Yeah, okay, good.
How late is late?
How late is late? 5 a.m. is too early.
6:30.
6:30.
Well, that's reasonable.
8:30.
8:30 is later. Now I'm just giving you my personal opinions. 6:40 is when we wake up for kids to get to school on time. It's like the last minute we can possibly wake up and get them there on time. So for me, 5 a.m. is hard. For you, it might not be hard. 5 a.m., the alarm goes off, then I'm going to take my pill. That's a reasonable thing to do. Even if you're just setting your alarm, you're sleepily taking your pill, and then you're relaxing a little bit, and maybe you're going back to sleep. If your goal is to exercise, that's harder, right? And then you'll might end up having your gym clothes on and still being in bed. That woman's holding her weights and has gym shoes on and is in bed still. So you have to pick a reasonable context where you would actually successfully do the thing you're trying to do. Did you hear 2 p.m. is apparently the ideal time physiologically for all of us to exercise. Maybe that's possible for you, but for many people, 2 p.m. is, no, that's in the middle of the workday or something like that. Anyhow, this is a planning sheet that's in your handouts that has been used in other research. This is from a moving heart program. It's not mine, but it's available online. And I like it because it splits it up into something called action planning, when, where, how, with whom you're going to do something. But then something also important is called coping planning. It's when you anticipate the barriers that you're going to face and you plan ahead for what you're going to do in the face of that barrier, right? So if you want a habit of walking outside with a friend, you know that the negative temperatures are going to get in your way. You think about it ahead of time and say, well, if the temperature is below freezing, then what are we going to do? We'll go for a walk at the mall, right? Or we're going to walk up and down her stairs with her. Yeah, something. You just plan ahead and then that helps. Okay. It's extremely important to optimize motivation. I put optimize on there because I don't know how else to say it better than that. There's all sorts of different types of motivation, but it's important to focus on rewards. And I'll just go through these quickly. But if you have questions, there's a whole bunch of research on all of these points that we could talk about. Many people who, for example, want to exercise sign up for boot camp of some kind, something that they're going to hate because they think I need someone else to kick my butt into being healthy. That doesn't work because something that you hate is not something that will ever be a habit. So we've studied this. Habits go back to the behaviorists, 1950s, the original behaviorists, B.F. Skinner, if you ever were tortured by this in a psychology class, where he tortured rats, but actually he gave cheese to the rats, right? The rats had to learn a habit of following a maze and then you get cheese at the end. The cheese is the reward. If you take away the cheese, it dehabituates, right? They stop following your silly maze and they say, no, go follow your own maze. I need that cheese. Well, we are the same as rats. I'm happy to tell you, we need a reward or it won't be a habit. So pick something that has a reward. It could be that you're doing it with someone else. One of my favorite examples of this is my 2 graduate students would do a bar class together, B-A-R-R-E. It's like ballet. They hated bar, but they did it together. And it was like a shared bonding experience that somehow helped them get through my lab and get their PhDs. I don't know what it was, but doing it together was the reward. And that's okay. Like that's legitimate. You don't have to love exercise. You can love doing it with someone else. Focus on how well you sleep, for example. Focus on smaller, sooner rewards and track those. Fitbits I do like because they'll help you track those things in progress. And they should be doable, but challenging and meaningful, right? So if you have an instigation habit, I'm going to walk every morning. It's okay if you walk 5 minutes one day and half an hour another day. The idea is to just set that routine so that it becomes habitual and a part of your life and something that you want to do, but without the pressure. And so that you won't give up when you are unable to walk on a day, for example. Okay. And then hopefully you can add variety over time in whatever it is that you're choosing to do. Walking up and down the stairs is very specific. Going to the gym, you could do lots of different things at the gym though. It depends on how much variety you need to keep it rewarding. Remember, don't remove the cheese. You need the cheese to be there, even if it's a habit. Okay, that's all that I have. Thank you for attending and let me know what questions that you have. Yeah, she's got a mic for her questions. I don't know if they can be on at the same time, so I'm going to send it on. My Phil.
What do you think of the idea of separating exercising and nutrition? And weight loss? Because to lose weight doing exercises at our age is not possible. You'd be exercising from morning to night. And so that defeats it. You exercise, you don't lose the weight, and you say, see, doesn't work. So if you separated the two, you exercise so your body moves as easily as it still can at our age. You eat well because it makes you feel better. I would think you have a better result than when you say, well, not worth doing, just look at it.
No, very good point. But should we separate weight loss, exercise, and nutrition? Our reasons for exercising and eating well should be to feel well and be well and functioning. Physical functioning, mental health, just well-being in general. Weight is very determined by other things which we can't control, and maybe some things that we can. But weight is very external to us. And what's best for our mental well-being, physical well-being, and maintenance of behavior is nothing external, but only internal, right? So to focus on weight at all is a bad idea, actually, I think. There is there's a movement called Health at Every Size, HAES. It should be health at every age, health at every size. But it's exactly what you said. The whole point is stop focusing on weight and shame and external pressure to do these things, but focus instead on intuitive, mindful eating. What do you want? What does your body need now? And what do healthy foods taste like? What do you like? What do you enjoy about eating? And then exercise, they call it mindful embodiment. They get very fancy with their terms, but the point is do what feels good and what you want to be doing and optimize your enjoyment of exercise. All of that takes care of itself and your weight will adjust often down by not focusing on it at all. But as soon as we start focusing on weight, and that's our main motivation, it makes everything harder and negative and not rewarding. Also, no cheese. So keep the cheese. So everything you said is correct. We should be doing that, and it works better. And we know that that is true. It's hard to put into practice, but
And you can get better at my age. I started doing those Chinese balls, that you roll in your hands. And I couldn't roll them the other way. And I've been doing this for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden,
now you can. Yeah, focus on functioning. You're focusing on the right things. Little challenges help though too. Like you walking up the stairs and because it's interesting. It's not focused on weight or what somebody else tells us. Is there anything? I mean, mostly when you talk about weight, you're focusing on what somebody else has told you. I'm working on doctors at the same time. I study doctor-patient communication, and weight is almost the first thing that comes up. And that's almost always the sole focus. And man, that's annoying. It's like the last thing. It's important because obesity causes many different things that we don't like, but focusing on it is not the way to get better. So your intuition is correct. Any other questions? Or insights?
Can you give some more examples of what achieve would be for exercise?
Yes, cheese exercise. Besides literal cheese that you give yourself every time you exercise, which is completely valid. It's usually a social component, especially for as we get older, people tend to be more intrinsically motivated by doing things with others. So satisfying our need for relatedness, we call it, or social support. So doing something with a friend is usually, or in a class setting, is most motivating. In older adult populations, physical functioning. So paying attention to, you were just talking about how your wrists, your actual hands, but how much energy you have when you're playing with grandkids, or your ability, the energy that you have by the end of the day, or like paying attention, being mindful of those things are very rewarding. If you can find an activity that you like better, most people report doing best outside. I know in Iowa, sometimes that's hard. Walking outside, for example, instead of on a track or, indoors, just the nature has a lot. We have just hired a new person in my department. Her name's Kate Schertz. She was in the Navy for 6 years and she's finished 2 postdocs. And now she's joining our faculty and she studies the benefit of nature for well-being. And how just walking outside, she actually studied couples therapy, where couples going through therapy indoors, which is standard, compared to couples who had a therapy session while walking in a park, had so much better outcomes. And they felt the therapy session itself went better. They felt better towards each other. They felt better in their own skins, and they were walking at the same time. Anyhow, nature is my answer to you. So those are kind of teases I know most people appreciate from exercise. But you get things like weightlifting. I think that one's hard because it is hard. It's difficult, right? You're challenging your body. But people who've been lifting weights regularly, if they miss a day or two, this counts, they feel weak. It doesn't feel good. And so they look forward to that sensation. And so some of the cheeses, the rewards we get from exercise, you have to experience them first and build them up so that you realize that they're there. And then you're motivated to keep them. It's different than cheese, but still rewarding. Anyone else have any good examples of rewards that you get?
Jane, I'm going to bring you
The question. You can have questions, but if you have other thoughts on rewards.
During almost everything you said, I thought about the bingo size class that is held here twice a week. Are you familiar with that? Well, bingo size, it sounds funny. And then when you try to explain it, but you are doing exercises, you're socializing, and you're playing bingo. And the other thing 60 Forward does actually the City Park and Rec, with any exercise class you go to, you get a little card, and if you've done, I think it's 8 or 10, you get a free coffee every time. You can fill those cards. So those are some motivational, or what do you call it, cheeses?
Yes. I've never before used that, but now it is.
Yeah. Anyway, I just
That's
thought,
a good
my
idea.
goodness, it sounds like that.
Well, and once it is a routine, you're looking for rewards to make it a part of your life. But once it is, you don't want to give it up. Then the nature of the cheese that you need changes. But if it's scheduled and that's what your routine is and that's what you want, it's a lot easier to stick with it.
I have a good one for you. Getting up from the chair. You can start thinking, I want to be able to get up once without having to push off. And then all of a sudden that gets easy. Then you add number 2. And before you know it, you do 15 and don't even think about it.
I do that one.
What do you think would be rewarding?
See, I prep really well. Like I always have a gym bag in my car.
Yep.
When I get hung up is that instigation. I'll make a plan for the days. I like doing a lot of this. Something.
Mhm.
Because something happens, schedule or whatever, next thing I know, the time has passed. So it's that instigation piece. Good. But I like how it feels like.
Well, and I mean, what you're describing is real life. And so I'm not hearing a problem with rewards for you because say something gets in the way and you're unable to go to the gym as you had thought. It bothers you. And you're more likely to do it the next day, right? That's what we want functionally and for your health. It's uncomfortable when stuff gets in the way, but that's also just how it is. It's real world. So again, all of you have, figured everything out from what I can hear. I don't think that there's anything you can change so the morning is better. I used to work out at 5 a.m. Oh, I don't know how I did that. Mom does it all the time. Well, not 5 a.m, right? Because you have to adhere to the class schedules. It's like 8 a.m. But things that get in our way, like schedule changes or disruptions, happen more often as the day goes on. So we're more successful adhering to anything in the morning for that reason. Some people are evening types. That's why I was asking what time you all get up. College students and especially high school, everything's later for them. They're evening active. My daughter doesn't wake up till 11 p.m. I don't know what to do with her. She's in high school and in school at 8 a.m. So it would be harder for her. But for the rest of the world, if we can squeeze it into the morning, it's less likely to be disrupted. It's also less enjoyable though. So you kind of have to balance what you need with your schedule and your life restraints. But what I heard from you is that's normal and you're handling it perfectly. Yeah. Any other questions or insights? Are you all really interested in exercise, or was there some other thing we've not even touched on that you would say is complex to give me food for thought for the future? There's only so many things. There's medications, diet, and exercise. Anything else?
My goals have been around reducing technology because I'm like the last generation that didn't grow up with a cell phone. So it was probably 8th grade that I got the original Nokia phone. It was really exciting. So a long time ago, I made a resolution to be a mom who puts it on the docking station and is not carrying it around the house. I relapse sometimes, but the cheese is playing the board games, all the connection that I get from that. And I wish we could go back to a house phone, but we can't. So I have a place where I put it. And when I come in the house, I put it there. I try not to leave it around for anyone to pick up. Like if you're going to go check your phone, that's where it is.
Yeah. That's really good example of where we can have habits, but you always have to keep working at it. And when you're talking about other people that you're responsible for, it complicates everything. But you don't want everything to be a habit. You want to have that mindful with your family that's the point. And so if everything else you need to do is a habit, that's why we want things to be habits, is it frees you up to then appreciate, focus your mind on the things that matter, or like spending time with family and things like that. And so if you have to keep reminding yourself to put down dang phone, take your kids' phones away, then that's worth your time. Everything else can be a habit so that you can do that. I don't have any good answers to that one. I'm still struggling. A docking station's a good idea. Well, thank you all. I think it's past time, but come ask questions if you've got them. Feel free to email me too.
Okay, I just have a couple notes before we close.
Oh, wait, sorry.
That's okay. I just want to say thank you to Dr. Phillips for your time in preparing and presenting this program. Our upcoming programs are Your Healthcare, Your Say, Exploring Advanced Directives on Wednesday, February 11th at 2. It'll be here at 60 Forward. And then the Basics of Heart Health, Wednesday, February 25th at 2 here at 60 Forward. Thanks everybody for coming today.